How's it going, everyone? This is Keith. People call me Reverend Doctor. It occurs to me that this is probably long overdue. I was gonna walk everyone through my pedal board that I have. I got home from tour not too long ago. I've been really impressed by my current rig as far as its ability to withstand a lot of unknown and atypical situations. Even though I have a lot, I own a lot of equipment, I own a lot of gear. Most of it is like pretty much as either essential or it is so foolproof that I can't get it wrong. Which, if you've seen my videos, you know the kind of musician that I am. I'm playing corporate gigs, I'm playing private gigs, and I'm not really leaving a whole lot of space for frills, which is good, but at the same time, I'm also delivering a really high quality product for just one guy, which clients love, both private, corporate, and anything in between. So I'm gonna walk you through my stuff, and if you want, what I'm gonna do here is, this is actually the case that my pedal board comes in. I just recently got this custom made. I believe it's by Go MC. Logo's upside down. Get this on the way, but he actually built me a custom sized and built pedal board. It has casters, which is really good, because if I was to estimate, this thing is close to 75-80 pounds, which sounds like a lot. The bulk of it actually is not the case, it is the pedal board. And we're gonna open this up and take a look at it and see what I have going on here, and I'll walk you through it. It should also be mentioned, the case manufacturer is actually someone here in Los Angeles, so I didn't even actually have to have the case shipped to me. I was able to have it manufactured and then just drove out in a little bit of ways into the burbs and got this case. So it saved me a lot of money. So if you're in the LA or greater LA area, super handy. If you notice, there's gonna be a theme in my gear. I have it with purple and like bright gold. All of my gear, all of my cases, all of my stands and things like that. That's so that I can actually locate these in the dark, and that if anyone else is helping me out loading out my gear, it's an easy way to be able to tell them, if you see purple and gold, go ahead and pick that up. I did live in Minnesota for 8 years. It's not deliberately a Vikings thing. It's actually because purple and gold are some of my favorite colors, as well as my wife. So anyway, let's do this. You can see that I transport a lot of cables. That's actually because the bottom tier of the board doesn't quite fit. So I use the cables to actually cushion the board in place. So. You can see not all of them are wrapped neatly. Please don't kill me, cable Nazis. And I actually use the cord for my power adapter to fill in the space in the back. I'm sure it doesn't actually move that much when it's actually in here, but you know, you can never be too careful. One thing as an aside is that I did actually build kind of my own snake. What I did is I used a cable wrap here so that I have on the ends everything that goes actually into, this end actually goes into my SPD-SX. So I have the MIDI cables, I also have the through cables. I sometimes have a mixer in order to be able to run in-ear monitors if I'm in a place where sound is that prohibitive. And you can see I actually have midway down the cable length to be able to run in-ear monitors from the feed out. I also, on the other end, have everything color-coded and labeled as far as being able to plug it in. So I just used electrical tape, and I actually labeled everything on the back, and you'll probably be able to see that here. I also have the MIDI cables labeled. And again, that's because I'm running control commands from the RC-300 and the SPD-SX to and from each other in order to be able to change channels, as well as automatically load drum patches, or if I need to, be able to actually have background tracks engaged. I know people that I could do this through Ableton, but what can I say? I like doing it through the gear itself. So let's go ahead and get this out. All right, so this is my pedal board with everything fully loaded on it. You can actually see that this is I believe a Jamboard pedal board. You can see logo on the back. I actually partnered with a guy that runs this company in order to be able to custom build this pedal board. I'm going to walk you through everything that I've got going on the outside, which looks like a crazy large amount, but it's actually not as bad as it looks. And I'll also go through each of the components here on my board. So I'll probably also tack on the end my reaction to getting the Jamboard pedal board in the mail before I loaded everything up and had it set up for this most recent tour. But let's go ahead. I feel like the best way to do this is going to be able to start with the beginning of the signal chain. And the beginning of the signal chain is actually this Boss, that's the WL50, and it's just the simple wireless bug system. You plug this in, it automatically pairs with the pedal, figures out the right frequency that it wants to be able to use. You remove this, put it in your guitar. A lot of people don't like it. They call it a wart on your guitar, but I have to admit it's pretty handy. I'm a little bit disappointed in it because it doesn't quite fit snug with my Fender Acoustasonic Telecaster, but I have a whole video about that. I've figured out a workaround. I basically just use a right angle adapter and then gaffer's tape. So after I go from this, I immediately am actually routing it down into my LR Bags session is what this is. And this is basically just a preamp. It acts like an acoustic preamp. Now what I've noticed is that I've had to sometimes fool around with the volume, the gain, and how saturated the compression actually is from place to place depending on the venue, because although this is only adding on some nice gain and compression, it actually changes the color of the sound. I actually haven't had to mess the comp EQ. I've been able to leave this exactly where it is. Every time I plug in and play, I end up fooling around with this, and where I have this makes a lot of sense for the Fender Acoustasonic guitar. So I leave it pretty much where it is, and I'll actually disengage it when I want to be able to use the electric tones. The reason I do that, I've noticed it actually adds a little bit of a acoustic sheen when I'm using the Fender Acoustasonic. But I love this thing. I watched a demo of it online. I think it was That Pedal Show did a demo where they engaged this, and I was just like, oh, it sounds so good. I have to admit, it's probably one of the first preamps that I've really loved. That goes immediately into my hot tone, or hot one. This is both a volume pedal and a wah pedal. So it's both a volume and a wah, and one click to be able to engage the wah feature, one click to be able to do volume instead. The one thing that's kind of disappointing about this, I will say, is that when you have the heel all the way back, it does not actually mute the guitar when it does volume. It does probably, I would say, about 25% to 100%. So when I'm not using this, I don't really use it for volume swells or anything like that. But I will say it's invaluable to be able to have a wah pedal actually on my pedal board. And look how space-saving it is. It's one of the smallest pedals I have, and I'm able to do a wah. I actually really like the tone of this. I'm really picky about my wah pedals as far as the sweep. I hate really bright wah pedals. Probably not only because I use it with acoustic guitar, but also because I play single coil pickups. Which, even on my, like, if I've got a Stratocaster or a Telecaster or something like that, a bright sweep really just doesn't work. This one you're not able to EQ, it doesn't have any other settings. You can use it as just a volume pedal, you can use it as just a wah pedal, but I use it in the both mode just because occasionally I do like to be able to back off the volume using the pedal if I'm playing. So that's what I do here. This volume pedal, the valve press, goes immediately into the OC3. And this is invaluable. I used to actually try and switch from bass guitar to guitar during my sets. And although it's not as flashy for those that can actually, the very few people that can identify the difference between a bass guitar and a guitar, like they're not saying, ooh, he can play two different instruments, but I am getting that nice full sound with just this. All you do, you run it on the poly mode. I usually have the direct level pretty high because I find that after engaging this, using the poly and then allowing it to pretty much, I keep these at close to or about noon. Sometimes I'll dial it up depending on what I'm playing, but this allows you to be able to get a bass note at the very bottom note or notes that you play, and then after that, as you're playing guitar, the rest of your tone above that root note is unaffected. And you can see that I'm using the WL 50. I don't have this plugged in all the way. The reason is that if it's not plugged in, which I don't have any cables running into the board right now, it'll actually go ahead and drain that battery, and I don't want it to do that right now. So I've been leaving it unplugged so that green light's off. After that, you can see I have it running directly into the TalkBox synth. I use this as a little flavor. You can see that I am running a little bit of correction. I'm actually not usually running that much reverb. I usually have this off and run it through. I have a portable mixer, but I will have the tone on, and I'll run this through that. So I actually have my vocals running through this, and I'll show you that loop here in just a moment. But you have to run your guitar signal through it so that you can, this is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's a vocoder synth, and what it does is it runs your vocal mic through it as a patch and your guitar through it, and then anything that you are playing through the guitar once you sing, those are the notes that are played. So it's a really cool moment to be able to throw in sometimes a nice little funky flavor. So that is basically the OC3 runs through the TalkBox, and then right now I have my Spatial Delivery by Earthquaker Devices, which I love this pedal, but I actually don't end up using it a lot live in my current gig. Probably the reason is that I have my volume pedal, my bow press. If I didn't have this on, which I didn't for a while, I was using this, and I noticed that I got kind of bored with the tones because I didn't want to be leaning down and like fiddling with this every time just to get a different tone out of it. I do want to be able to set this and forget it. What's going to be replacing this is a vibrato. I have a specific one in mind, and when I get it, I'll actually probably do a review on it. But this Spatial Delivery, man, it gets some funky tones. I love it. I love it a lot. So you can see I have directly coming out of that. I go into the Strymon's Big Sky. You've seen this pedal. It's all over the place. You're probably sick of seeing Strymon pedals. Fact of the matter is that they're just so good. The way that I run this, yes, it's like I have a nuclear warhead when a small match would do. Honestly, I'm using a few different features on this. I'm either using it for just like a simple studio reverb on the guitar, just to give the guitar some space and some presence live. Or the other thing is I'm using it for are things like halls, or I actually use it also for swell, a reverb effect. I do that in a couple of original songs. I don't think I have any videos of them yet. I recorded some in Kansas City on this last tour of my original songs, and you can hear the Big Sky on a couple of those. The other thing that I have on my pedal right now is TC Helicon's Connect XT. I had this before I bought the TalkBox synth. The TalkBox synth actually does have some pitch correction and reverb. I only really use the correction when I'm doing the looper, and these are running in series. So my vocals running directly into the TC Helicon first, the Correct XT, and then it's going into the TC Helicon TalkBox synth. And I actually leave both the tone switch and the pitch shift switch off on these, and I'm really only using the gain and the auto feed, or the anti-feedback. This is really handy. It saved my butt a couple of times live, just because it automatically finds pitches in your vocal frequency, and it will EQ them out automatically. Or if you want to, you can manually search for which frequencies to eliminate. Now, I'm definitely going to get rid of this one, because the only thing that I was really using from this was the pitch and the tone, and I like the tone preset. I like being able to just push the button and there it is on this. I'll probably replace this with some other vocal effect. I really don't have any other vocal effects going on right now. My vocal end of things is pretty simple. It's pretty much just looping into my looper and harmonies. But that's the other thing that I have on the top of my board. I'm not actually running a guitar signal in or anything like that. So basically, after my signal comes out of the Blue Sky, it goes directly into the RC-300. And I run my RC-300 almost directly as it comes out of the factory. The only presets that I've changed is I have this set up so that it's able to send and receive MIDI signals from my SPD-SX. And that's pretty much it. I'm actually going to change the expression pedal so that it does a low pass filter. There are a couple of songs like Guys Like You by Maroon 5 that, you know, uses kind of a filter effect, and it would be really nice to be able to dial this out. There are also a couple of original songs I wanted that effect on. So that's how I'm running that. The other thing that you see on my board, the very final thing, is I actually ordered this from stompbeat.com. It's an actual Australian manufacturer. What it is it's just a switch, an AB switch for vocal. So the way that I have this is I run my vocal in from the back. After it comes in from the back, it immediately goes into this center channel, and I am either switching it to the looper, which if it's going into the looper, you know, I'm able to loop things, but this would be the primary gain for it, or I'm going directly into the front of house, in which case I am bypassing the looper. It is still going through the Correct XT as well as the TC Helicon in either mode. So I guess if you really want to think about it, it's coming in from the back, it's going in through the Correct XT, it's going into the TalkBox synth, and then it's going into my switch, and the switch either will go into the loop or it will go into the front of house connection. So it makes it really easy. And it's a silent foot switch. Although it makes a loud click out loud, there's no hiss or pop or anything like that. I haven't noticed any more signal noise or anything like that introduced into it. It's super duper handy. So that's basically all I'm running. I will say the other things under the hood that are hidden is that I am running, I believe Strymon makes the Zuma. I have the big giant Zuma. The other thing that I have under here, which it does lift up, but the cables are so tight that I might not lift it up all the way. But if you can see under there, I'm running some stage bugs, some radial stage bugs, 2 of them. So I have stereo out. So those are sitting under there pretty much permanently now. Things look kind of like a little bit of a rat's nest, but that's just because I have cables of all different like lengths and sizes. I do have some of them wrapped, but for the most part, it's pretty much the Wild West down there, I will admit. So looks great on the top, but I'm working on it, everybody. You know, this is a constant process. One of the things that I wish they did do is, you know, they do make right angle XLR cables. They're not the most practical things in the world. I'm not gonna lie. Like, this thing has given me the most trouble. It's super reliable. I've never had it, like, you know, cause any sound or interference. But, you know, as far as getting it into the right angles, no pun intended, it's been a bit of a pain in my butt. So you can see I also have the RC-300 labeled just in case I take this off the board. I'm actually considering buying a different RC-300 because when I hopped on a plane, all I did was I just took this one pedal with me and got to the venue and then just used my acoustic guitar acoustically to create some rhythmic sounds, or my mouth did some beatboxing. But this is probably the only pedal that like comes off of my board somewhat regularly. But let's go ahead and take you around the back here because I want to show you all the different inputs and outputs I've got going on. All right, let's try this again. My first video didn't record. So, I.O. I will say that the reason why I have this set up and looking so multicolored is because I wanted it to be super easy for stagehands or sound guys to set up. And I will say that so far it's worked out brilliantly. The left 4 inputs that I have here are all for me. That snake is color coordinated, so even in like low lit situations, you should be able to decipher it. The out R and out L are sends from the actual looper so that they go into the SPD-SX so that I can actually monitor a click if I am running in-ear monitors. If not, those actually aren't all that particularly necessary. The in-R and in-L are inputs from the SPD-SX into the RC-300 so that I can record the drum loops. Now, here's where it gets super easy for sound guys. I show up at a place, I say I need 3 XLRs, they're like, great. After I have everything plugged in, there's really just these 3 remaining and they know exactly what's happening because I have them labeled. It is so easy that they literally don't talk to me again until it's like monitor time and we're ringing out the monitors. So I will say that this has been super helpful. It's pretty obvious. The mic out is the front of house mic, front of house right for the looper, front of house left for the looper. I am actually running some stereo effects on my Strymon Big Sky. Like I said, I run some stereo reverbs just to be able to create space and interest in my actual execution of my loops, just because I feel like running things in mono can get pretty fatiguing on the ear. Some stereo images can be really helpful for that. On the right side, you can see that I'm running my MIDI in and out. That's from the SPD-SX into the RC-300. Super handy because any patch changes that I make automatically go to both devices. It does mean I have to set up additional drum sounds on a ton of channels on the SPD-SX, but I gotta be honest, being able to switch those drum sounds according to patch presets is super handy. Not only that, I know that the looper clock and the RC-300 clock are already in sync as far as the click and stuff go. So super handy, super helpful. The final XLR, this is something that I added myself. After I got the board, I decided that I wanted to run this a little bit different. I got this XLR to be able to have one mic input going in, and that's the one that runs from both of these. Also, I did want to say, I forgot to mention about this dude, stompbeat.com. So this pedal was discontinued. I reached out to him about it. He said, no problem, man. Had one up for me within 24 hours. Bought it. It arrived in 5 to 7 days. This cat lives in Australia. Got it to me. This thing works like a champ. I'm not going to go to anybody else except for him for weird little switches and preamps and things like that, because this thing's a rock. It is a huge part of my set. I'm pushing it several times per song. So got that going on there. The other thing is that we have a couple of ventilation ports, probably not enough. And then we have my IEC on-off switch. I will say that this switch does not have a filter in it. That's probably the one thing that I would change if I were to have this board built again. But it is super handy because the on-off switch allows me to be able to control the power directly from here. As far as the filter aspect, I do actually have a portable filter I run with me. It's a Furman power conditioner that looks a lot like just a regular power strip, but it has conditioning features built into it as well. So that is the rundown of my board. It looks like a lot. I will say the one thing, dude, the guy from Jamboard hooked me up with his board. I will say that ever since this board, it's been a huge boon, not only as far as setup time, but like for my headaches and logistics on the road. It's been nice being able to have some consistency, because before I was literally running cables from, this was 2 separate boards, which I was literally running cables before and after shows. It wasn't great. It wasn't a great situation. The one thing that I would change is probably the material that it's made out of. I'm not sure what this is, if it's like birch or cedar or something like that, or even just plywood, but it's pretty heavy. And to be fair, I've got a lot of like pedals on here that are actually pretty dense. I will say that the Align series is pretty heavy. I will say that the RC-300 is heavy. The Strymon Big Sky is also heavy. The rest of the pedals are actually relatively light for their case and their enclosure. But everything combined, along with all the cables that I have running under here, the weight is pretty significantly high, which is why I ended up getting this beast of a travel container in order to be able to move it around. So I'll probably try to maybe go with aluminum or something like that next time, something a little bit lighter but just as sturdy. The Jamboard guy, if you're watching this, you know, he's a woodworker primarily, but I don't know what it would take to be able to machine that. But anyway, thanks everyone for listening. I appreciate it. Again, any feedback is appreciated, whether you liked what I should do differently. I'm just trying to put some information out there to help us all. So, especially if you're a looper or you do corporate or private gigs, just ideas and things like that for you to be able to maybe use in your own rig. So, cool. Peace out.